Stop. Whatever you think you know about creatine is probably wrong. I spent 3 weeks digging through research papers that most fitness influencers have never opened, and what I found made me genuinely angry. Not at creatine, at the absolute garbage information that has been circulating for decades, while the actually important stuff gets buried. Today, I am revealing 4 warning effects that could change how you view this supplement entirely. One of them explains why your antidepressants might not be working as well as they should. Another reveals why vegetarians have been secretly winning the creatine game while meat eaters waste their money. And one effect is so counterintuitive that it sounds like I am making it up, but I have the studies to prove it. This is not your typical drink more water advice. This is information your doctor does not know and your trainer has never heard. If you are a man over 50 and you want my free 30-day workout plan, comment the word active below. I built it specifically for your situation, and it complements everything you are about to learn. Now let us get into the science that nobody is talking about. Your body is cannibalizing itself to make creatine, and you had no idea. Here is something that should fundamentally change how you think about creatine supplementation. Your body manufactures approximately 1 to 2 grams of creatine daily. Sounds harmless enough. What nobody mentions is what this manufacturing process actually costs you. Creatine synthesis requires methyl groups. Specifically, it demands S-adenosylmethionine, which is the single most important methyl donor in your entire body. Your liver uses this compound for hundreds of critical processes including DNA repair, neurotransmitter production, detoxification pathways, and hormone metabolism. Every single cell in your body needs adequate methylation to function correctly. Here's the problem. Creatine synthesis alone consumes roughly 40% of your body's total methyl group supply. Let that number sink in. Nearly half of one of your most precious biochemical resources gets burned up just making creatine. This leaves significantly less available for everything else, including the processes that keep your brain chemistry balanced, your liver functioning properly, and your cardiovascular system running smoothly. When methylation becomes compromised, homocysteine levels rise. Elevated homocysteine is directly linked to increased cardiovascular disease risk, cognitive decline, and depression. Your body is essentially robbing Peter to pay Paul, except Peter is your heart, brain, and liver, and Paul is your biceps. Now here is where this becomes genuinely important. When you supplement creatine externally, you dramatically reduce your body's need to manufacture it internally. This spares your methyl groups for the hundreds of other critical functions that were being neglected. Studies have shown that creatine supplementation can actually lower homocysteine levels precisely because of this methyl-sparing effect. This means creatine is not just a muscle supplement. It is potentially a cardiovascular and neurological support compound operating through a mechanism that has nothing to do with your bench press. The warning here is not that creatine is dangerous. The warning is that not taking creatine might be forcing your body into a resource allocation crisis that affects systems you never connected to muscle performance. If you have been told you have elevated homocysteine, if you have methylation genetic variants like MTHFR mutations, or if you struggle with depression and brain fog, this methyl-sparing effect might be more relevant to your health than any amount of weight room performance ever could be. Speaking of brain chemistry, let me tell you about a connection that pharmaceutical companies probably wish would stay buried in academic journals. The antidepressant hiding in your gym bag. Your brain is the most energy-demanding organ in your entire body. It represents roughly 2% of your body weight, but consumes approximately 20% of your total energy output. Every thought, every memory, every emotional regulation process requires adenosine triphosphate. When brain energy production falters, things go wrong in ways that manifest as psychiatric symptoms. Here is research that most psychiatrists have never encountered. Creatine supplementation has demonstrated antidepressant effects in multiple clinical studies, particularly for treatment-resistant depression. A 2012 study published in the American Journal of Psychiatry found that women with major depressive disorder who added creatine to their SSRI treatment showed significantly faster and greater improvement compared to those taking the antidepressant alone. Some responded within 2 weeks, which is remarkably fast for depression treatment. The mechanism makes elegant biological sense. Depression involves impaired brain energy metabolism. Brain scans of depressed individuals consistently show reduced ADP levels in critical regions. Creatine supplementation increases brain creatine and phosphocreatine concentrations, essentially providing more fuel for neural processes that have been running on empty. This extends beyond depression. Research on traumatic brain injury suggests creatine may be neuroprotective, potentially reducing damage and improving recovery when the brain is injured. Studies on sleep deprivation show creatine can partially counteract the cognitive impairments that occur when you do not sleep adequately. Your brain runs on creatine the same way your muscles do, and supplementing it affects cognition, mood, and mental resilience. The warning effect here is sobering. If you are struggling with depression, brain fog, cognitive decline, or mental fatigue, and you have never tried creatine, you may be ignoring one of the most accessible and well-researched cognitive support compounds available. This is not alternative medicine speculation. This is peer-reviewed research from major psychiatric journals. The darker implication is this: how many people are suffering unnecessarily because creatine remains categorized as a bodybuilding supplement rather than a legitimate brain support compound? How many treatment-resistant cases might respond to something sitting in the vitamin aisle for $15? The fitness industry's monopoly on creatine's reputation may be causing genuine harm to people who desperately need options. If you are on antidepressants and considering adding creatine, discuss it with your psychiatrist. Bring the research. Most will be unfamiliar with it, but the studies exist and the results are compelling. But here is perhaps the most ironic twist in all of creatine science. The people who need it least are often the ones taking it most religiously, while the people who would benefit most have been told it is not for them. The 30% who are completely wasting their money. Approximately 20 to 30% of people who take creatine are non-responders. Their muscle creatine levels do not increase meaningfully with supplementation, they experience no performance benefits, and they are essentially donating money to supplement companies for no physiological return. If you have been taking creatine for months and genuinely cannot tell any difference, you might be in this category, and continuing to take it is financially pointless. Here is what determines whether you respond: your baseline muscle creatine saturation. If your muscles are already near maximum creatine capacity before you start supplementing, there is nowhere for additional creatine to go. It gets excreted. Your expensive powder becomes expensive urine. Who tends to have high baseline creatine levels? People who eat significant amounts of red meat and fish. These foods are the primary dietary sources of creatine. If you consume beef daily, your muscles are already loaded with dietary creatine, and supplementation provides minimal additional benefit. Now here is the plot twist that should make every vegetarian and vegan extremely interested. People who avoid meat have significantly lower baseline muscle creatine stores. When they supplement, they have massive room for improvement. The response is dramatic and measurable. Studies consistently show that vegetarians experience greater cognitive and physical performance improvements from creatine supplementation compared to omnivores. This creates an ironic situation. The stereotypical creatine user is a meat-eating gym enthusiast who may be a non-responder wasting their money. Meanwhile, vegetarians and vegans, who have been told creatine is not part of their lifestyle, are actually the population that would benefit most dramatically. The supplement industry has marketed creatine to exactly the wrong demographic for decades. If you eat meat daily and have tried creatine without noticing meaningful effects, save your money. You are likely already saturated. If you avoid meat and have never considered creatine because it seems incompatible with your dietary philosophy, you are missing out on potentially the most effective supplement you could take. Creatine monohydrate is synthesized in laboratories. No animals are involved in its production. It is completely compatible with vegetarian and vegan lifestyles, and it addresses a genuine nutritional gap that plant-based diets create. The warning here is about wasted resources and missed opportunities. Know which category you fall into before committing to long-term supplementation. Now, if the brain connection surprised you, wait until you hear what creatine does to your blood sugar. This one made me question everything I thought I understood about metabolic health. The diabetes plot twist that endocrinologists are sleeping on. Here is information that could legitimately change lives, and I am genuinely frustrated that it is not more widely known. Creatine improves glucose uptake and insulin sensitivity. This is not theoretical. This is not extrapolated from rat studies. This is demonstrated in human clinical trials with diabetic and pre-diabetic participants. A study published in Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise found that creatine supplementation combined with exercise improved glycemic control in type 2 diabetics significantly better than exercise alone. Participants showed enhanced glucose transporter type 4 translocation to muscle cell membranes. In simple terms, creatine helped their muscles absorb sugar from the bloodstream more efficiently, reducing the burden on insulin and improving overall metabolic function. The mechanism involves creatine's enhancement of AMPK activation, which is the same pathway that metformin, the most commonly prescribed diabetes medication, targets. You are essentially getting a compound that supports similar metabolic pathways to pharmaceutical intervention available without prescription, with decades of safety data, and it also makes you stronger. Here is where this becomes a warning. If you are pre-diabetic or managing type 2 diabetes and your healthcare provider has never mentioned creatine, you are potentially missing a tool that could complement your existing treatment. The research is clear enough that it warrants discussion. Additionally, if you are taking creatine and also taking diabetes medications, you need to monitor your blood glucose more carefully. The combined effect could potentially lower your blood sugar more than expected, which is problematic if your medication dosage was calculated without accounting for creatine's contribution. This is not fear-mongering. This is practical pharmacological awareness. The fitness industry markets creatine as a muscle supplement. The research suggests it might be one of the more accessible metabolic health compounds we have. These two framings have completely different implications for who should consider taking it. Here is what I need you to understand. Creatine is one of the most researched supplements in existence. Yet somehow the most important information remains locked in academic journals, while the fitness industry repeats the same surface-level talking points endlessly. Your body's methylation pathways, your brain chemistry, your metabolic health, and your baseline dietary patterns all determine how creatine affects you specifically. This is not a one-size-fits-all compound, and treating it as such leads to either missed benefits or wasted money. I want to hear from you. Which of these effects surprised you most? Was it the methylation connection, the antidepressant research, the diabetes implications, the vegetarian advantage? Drop your answer in the comments because your feedback directly shapes what I cover next. If you are a man over 50 and you want my free 30-day workout plan, comment active below and I will send it to you personally. Subscribe if you want more content that goes deeper than the recycled advice you find everywhere else. Share this with someone who takes creatine and has no idea what they just learned. See you in the next one.